Sometimes a story comes along that leaves you quietly reflecting, wondering, how could events unfold in such an unexpected way? This tale begins like a classic romance, reminiscent of a Bollywood film, but takes a turn into tragedy so profound that even seasoned investigators were left deeply unsettled. At its heart is a devoted husband, a marriage rooted in affection, and a blue plastic drum that would come to hold one of India's most haunting mysteries. This is the story known as the Blue Drum Murder. Let's return to 2016. Saurabh Rajput, a merchant navy officer, meets Muskan Rastogi. Their connection is immediate, love at first sight. Both families were opposed, but Saurabh and Muskan remained steadfast in their commitment. Undeterred, they chose to marry, forging ahead together. For a time, life was peaceful. Saurabh, diligent, gentle and caring, truly cherished his wife. Muskan, youthful and radiant, appeared to reciprocate his affection. Together they welcomed a daughter, Ashi, and for a while their lives seemed idyllic. But love is often tested by life's realities. Saurabh's career required long stretches at sea, primarily in London, as he worked tirelessly to provide for his family. He purchased a home in Meerut, ensuring his family's comfort while he was away. Yet the distance gradually created a space in their lives, and one day, someone from Muskan's past quietly re-entered. In 2019, Muskan reconnected with an old school friend, Sahil Shukla, through a WhatsApp group. What began as friendly conversation soon grew into frequent, heartfelt exchanges. Over time, the boundaries between friendship and something deeper became less clear. Sahil was facing personal struggles, grieving his mother's loss and coping with difficult habits, and Muskan found herself drawn into his world. Their bond became a form of escape, offering solace and companionship. Late-night conversations, secret meetings, and shared vulnerabilities deepened their connection, and soon their lives became increasingly intertwined. Meanwhile, Saurabh remained dedicated to his work abroad, sending support home, unaware that his absence had quietly changed the course of his family's story. By 2023, things had spiraled completely out of control. Muskan and Sahil were no longer thinking rationally. Both were heavily abusing drugs, and their relationship had become toxic, manipulative, and obsessive. To them, Saurabh was no longer a husband. He was just an obstacle, someone blocking the fantasy life they wanted together. That's when things took a truly dark turn. According to police, the two began seriously discussing how to get rid of Saurabh. They talked about where they could dump a body so no one would ever find it. They even visited remote areas around Meerut, scouting locations as if they were planning a movie scene, except this was all horrifyingly real. But Muskan didn't stop at plotting her husband's murder. She decided to manipulate Sahil's mind, using his grief against him. Remember, Sahil had lost his mother and was haunted by her death. Instead of comforting him, Muskan created fake Snapchat accounts, pretending to be Sahil's mother's ghost, sending him so-called divine messages. She sent him messages like, "My soul won't rest until you do what must be done." And what must be done, according to these fake messages, was to kill Saurabh. Fast forward to February 2024. Saurabh was planning another trip home. Muskan's birthday was coming up and he wanted to surprise her. He'd been away for months, working in London, and this visit was meant to be about family, spending time with Muskan and Ashi, celebrating together. But he had no idea his wife and her lover were already plotting his death. In the days before his arrival, Muskan allegedly went to a doctor, faked anxiety symptoms, and got a prescription for sedatives. She then forged it to get a much stronger batch, something that could knock someone out completely. Together with Sahil, she gathered everything they'd need: meat cleavers, acid, polythene bag. Everything was ready. All they needed was for Saurabh to come home. When Saurabh finally landed back in Meerut on February 24th, he was overjoyed. He brought gifts, shared stories from his travels, and even brought money to help out family and friends. He was proud to be home, proud to see his daughter, and excited to celebrate his wife's birthday. It was, on the surface, a beautiful reunion. But behind the smiles, Muskan and Sahil were already preparing for what would come next. That night, Muskan tried the first step of her plan. She laced Saurabh's food with sedatives, hoping he'd die in his sleep. But it didn't work, he just slept deeply. Saurabh probably woke up the next day feeling groggy, never realizing he'd just survived a murder attempt by the person he loved most. For Muskan and Sahil, it was a failed test run. They wouldn't fail again. 9 days later, on March 4th, Saurabh came home with food from his mother's house. Muskan reheated it, and this time she laced it with much stronger sedatives. When Saurabh passed out, she quickly called Sahil to come over. He arrived carrying weapons, and together they killed Saurabh in his sleep. What happened next is almost too gruesome to say out loud. They dragged his body into the bathroom. Sahil allegedly used a razor and cleavers to cut off his head and hands, hoping to make identification impossible. Then they stuffed his remains into a large bag and hid it inside the hollow box under their own bed. That night Muskan actually slept on that bed, right above the body of her husband. The next morning, they realized that hiding the body under the bed just wasn't enough. So they went out and bought a 250-litre blue drum, the kind people usually use for water or grain storage, along with bags of cement. Then they put all of Saurabh's remains inside, mixed cement and sand, and poured it over him, sealing the drum completely. To anyone else, it looked like an ordinary storage container, but inside it was a tomb. And as if things weren't twisted enough, Muskan and Sahil packed their bags and went on vacation. They took Saurabh's phone with them to Himachal Pradesh, posting updates, mountain photos, selfies, and just chilling captions, making it seem like Saurabh himself was travelling. Meanwhile, back in Meerut, the real Saurabh was literally encased in cement. Their plan sort of worked for a while. Everyone thought Saurabh had gone off on a trip, maybe to clear his mind. Days passed like this, until one day, a foul smell began spreading through their rented house. The landlord started asking questions about the weirdly heavy blue drum and the strange odour. But the truth didn't come from the landlord, it came from their 6-year-old daughter, Ashi. While staying with her grandmother, she started saying something that sent chills down everyone's spine. "My papa is in the drum." At first, the adults brushed it off, thinking she was just a confused or traumatized child, maybe talking about an imaginary friend. But, as we now know, she was telling the truth in the only way she could. By March 18th, Muskan and Sahil were back from their trip, and the landlord wanted them to move out. He even hired labourers to help shift their belongings, but when they tried to lift that blue drum, they couldn't. It was far too heavy. When they forced the lid open, the smell was so overpowering that they called the police immediately. Officers opened the drum and found the body of Saurabh Rajput, sealed in cement. When confronted, Muskan broke down and confessed everything. Not to the police, but to her mother first. But her mother did something most wouldn't have the strength to do. She took her daughter straight to the police station and turned her in. Both Muskan and Sahil were arrested. Tests later showed they were heavily addicted to drugs, so they were placed in de-addiction programs in jail. And then came one last cruel twist. During a routine medical check, Muskan was found to be pregnant, carrying Sahil's child. Her parents publicly disowned her, saying she'd brought shame to their family. Her father even said he wanted the death penalty for her. Today, Muskan sits in prison, isolated, reportedly trying to study law to defend herself in court. Her daughter, Ashi, is being raised by Saurabh's family. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of the Blue Drum Murder. A man who met a tragic end at the hands of someone he trusted. A little girl who lost her father in a heartbreaking way. And for what? For a misguided notion of love. This just goes to show that sometimes the deepest evil hides behind a familiar, loving face. This has been On This Day. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video.